It's Lydia, the lifestyle coach, here to help you with amazing information from another expert on the show today. I have a really fun interview prepared for you guys, and we're just going to have a lot of fun. But for those of you who are new, welcome. So happy that you're here. So what I do is I help women to be free from food crazies like overeating, binge eating, bulimia, all those sorts of things, using nothing but their own brains and a few common household items. Plus, you don't need the household items. Yay! Really just freedom, 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 and being able to get back our brains and our lives and our mental energy and all that good stuff. So we have had so many wonderful guests on this show and all of these lovely interviews. We have a really fun one today. So for those of you who don't know this, this may be completely life-changing for you. So listen up. The number one cause of why eating disorders start is restrictive dieting. So we've got restrictive diets, and then all the instincts in our body scream like, you need to eat a bunch of food. So we eat a bunch of food, then we get freaked out that we eat a bunch of food, and then we go back to the restrictive dieting to make up for it, and then it just turns into a cycle until it really just becomes a habit, and it's wired in our brain that that's what we do now, and we can break it like a habit too. So sort of, the old-fashioned traditional thinking is, well, you know what? You should just sort out all of your issues. You should just sort out all of your stress, and you should just sort out all of your past trauma, and you should just sort out everything, and your eating disorder will magically go away. So that is not what I preach here. The success rate of that is very, very low. And when we just treat it like a habit, then we can just break that habit and literally move on. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. Like, we can seriously just move on. But in moving on, it is really awesome that now that you have all of your brain power back and your time and your life and your body, when you have all of that back, then everything else gets easier. Like, you can work on you. So I have a really fun guest on today, and we're going to be really talking about that transition to a new identity, to a new life, to being able to just have an awesome relationship with ourselves. So on our show today is Nima Rahmany, Dr. Nima Rahmany, DC, CCWP, and he's both a chiropractor and an educator. And he specializes in really helping individuals and professionals to get to the root cause of their physical and emotional challenges, from stress, depressed, and anxious, to really living powerfully aligned and on purpose. So after Nima built a successful chiropractic practice in Maple Ridge, Dr. Nima, he sold his clinic in the June of 2016 to really pursue his passion of teaching and coaching professionals who are stressed, depressed, and anxious to transform and have their best year ever in both private and the corporate setting. So Dr. Nima is integrated all the mind-body tools in his quest of really healing stress-related disorders into one simple-to-follow method called the overview method, which is the adjustment above Atlas. So that he teaches one-on-one and in groups all over the world. And he's engaging in his edutaining lectures filled with inspired authenticity and edutainment. And as you guys know, if you've been here for very long, any sort of word mashups make me very happy. So just know from the get-go, like, Nima and I, we've spent time together. We've been to amazing events and gotten to know each other, and it's just been so fun to see his inspiring just in person and videos, and excited for you guys to just learn of his wisdom. So Dr. Nima, welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me, Lydia. It's so good to be serving with you, and I hope I can clarify some things and help your audience gain some understanding about what their next steps are in order to become powerfully aligned.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for being on. And I would I know your bio gave a little bit about you, but I would love to just start out and hear kind of what is your story? Like, why do you do what you do? And I would love to just delve into some really great nuggets for my audience to really put into their own life. So how did you get to where you are? Why do you do what you do, Nima?
Well, I've always loved the healing arts, transformation of health, ever since I was a kid. But struggling with anxiety and depression, both as a teenager and when I first got out in practice, I wanted to find out the answer of how to get out of mental jail. That's what I feel anxiety is that this feeling, this monkey on my back that always seemed to hold me back from living full on, from being able to make an impact, from feeling this fulfillment. Why was this thing constantly following me? And so it was, mental health and became extremely important. And so when patients would come to me with physical ailments, I would start to notice that everything that they were complaining about, as I got to know their stories about their past, about their traumas, about what they're holding on to, that really had an impact in how their bodies were functioning. And just in my own personal development to find the answers for myself, I thought, holy crap, I got to be showing my patients the exact same tools that I have learned that have made such a huge difference for me. And over the years of doing it, I'd set up these workshops in my clinic, and the patients that would come to the workshops had these profound transformations in all areas of their lives, in their relationships, in their health, in just the way that their relationships were with themselves even, that I thought, oh my God, it's so much more fun for me to do that than it is to, just be dealing with neck pain and back pain all the time. So I just kind of took the leap a few years ago, made a declaration that I wanted to make this my full-time job. And 3 years later, I sold my practice and went through a big, huge identity crisis, went through major anxiety and depression, and got help, got coaching. And I created this incredible program that actually helps people go from stressed, depressed, and anxious to having their best year ever. And it's just been, an incredible ride. That's how I met you.
Yes, so wonderful. I'm so glad that we got connected, and such an inspiring story. I know that for so many of us who are, this is what we do, is like we have an issue that we're fixing in the world, we're helping others. It really started with our own stories,
Totally.
Like, I was bulimic for years, a binge eater for years. And it's like, when you figure something out for you, being able to give back and help other people with that, I know from personal experience, it's a cool
Totally.
and to see others as well.
Yeah, when you see somebody and you know exactly where they've been, and I know what it's like to have panic attacks. I know what it's like to not be able to sleep at night, wake up every day at 3, praying that one day that you're able to resolve this thing, feeling like you're completely disconnected from other human beings and putting on a fake face and pretending. And I was sick of it. And so when I get a testimonial or like one of my clients who puts up on Facebook just recently, after a session that we had, if I die today, I die a free woman, because she completely exorcised the demon from her past, which is what my method actually helps people do, is clear the resentments from past traumas so that we can be more present and clear the anxiety. Yeah. That's the most fulfilling thing. You can't beat that feeling but that is the holy grail for me. Yeah. You can make a lot of money, you can have, great relationships. These are all important things to achieve as a human being. But for me, the most fulfilling, like you in your case, where you reach out to somebody and you're able to make, to be an assistant and a facilitator of their transformation with the exact same problem that you were just struggling with. That's the holy grail to me.
It's the best. Absolutely. And yeah. Thank you for being willing to just, give back and teach what you do. So one thing that I would love to focus in on, Nima, is, with so many of the women that I coach that are they're free from their eating disorders. They're finally just like, wow, I'm done. Some of these women for, 35 years plus have been struggling with this. And for them to just be done for the first time, like, number one, it's awesome. And that's a given, like, it's awesome. But number two, it's
what now?
What now, right? Number two, it's like, a lot of women have described it like, it's kind of like being in an abusive relationship. Like, yeah, you don't want to be in there. And I'm glad that it's over, but it's been part of your identity.
Yep.
It's been part of, the familiarity. It's sort of like a devil that we know sort of thing, right? It's like, well, I didn't want this, but it sure was familiar. So I know one thing that you work with is sort of this transitional anxiety of, I know I don't want to be there, but now that I'm over here, it feels
What?
different and I'm anxious. So
Yeah.
give us just a couple of just what do you give people? What do you show them as tools
Well,
when they're making a change?
good question. Transitional anxiety is basically all about the feelings that we get when we go from the known to the unknown. It's going from your job and leaving your job. It's leaving a relationship, going from being married to divorced, going from being like together to breaking up, going from this comfortable job to something different, going from having an eating disorder to all of a sudden being free. And so it's kind of like one of the things that and this is the same with people with anxiety, just anxiety itself. When I show them the door that you can actually be free of it, they've identified themselves so much with it that they become what I call institutionalized. It's like, who would I be without this disorder? Kind of like what you just said. And the answer is, first, once you take that leap, that big, bold leap into your fears to overcome them, now you're like, what's next? And what's important is, at the end of the day, the end result is for you to dedicate your life to something greater than you. At the end of the day, I mean, I take people through, the way that I do it is I take people through a process. And you're now in this state where you're walking into the void. You first have to have an understanding of what your values are, and who your values are, what you prioritize in your life, what's most meaningful to you, what brings you the most fulfillment, what you're most proud of about yourself. And these are the things that you hold as your values. And what you want to do is to create a mission and a vision statement for yourself, a declaration for yourself of what it is that you'd love to be, do, and have in this planet with the time that you have remaining. Because truly, without it, life is empty and meaningless.
Yeah.
Without that, without your why, without a connection to your why, because we all have one, the question is, are we connected to it or not? So the first thing that I do to help people get to that state that's critical for you to do is you need to actually clarify what that is for you. And number one, and number two, understand that it's always being refined. So it's a working document on Google Docs that's always being constantly changed. It's not written in stone. So many times people resist doing that type of work because they're like, well, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know. But it's just about taking action and refining it. I look over the last 11 years, my mission statement has dramatically shifted. Not dramatically, but pieces have come up when I become so inspired, when I get a new moment of clarity, something gets changed. But the mission statement that you want to have when you're going through this transition is, who do I want to be? What do I want to do? And what would I love to have? So it really is about what you're giving and receiving. So it's the two parts of us. It's our altruistic part that wants to give, and then the narcissistic part of us that wants to receive. We always have both of them. The mission statement needs to honor both. And so the next part of going through this transitional anxiety is you really need to clear any resentments that you have. Because any resentments towards yourself or others works as a rock in your backpack when you're trying to climb the mountain of life. Resentment is like taking poison and expecting the other person to die. And so knowing the right way, the right path of clearing resentment and having the right guide do it for you beyond just let it go, just let it go. Lydia, come on, just let it go. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. It never has.
Right. Lots and lots of
years of it doesn't work. So you got to have the right tools to help dissolve that resentment. And then what I do is I help people dissolve their regrets of what they're holding on to, what should have happened. I shouldn't have married him in the first place. I should have gotten divorced. I shouldn't have gotten divorced. I should have taken that job. All of these projections against reality are another rock in your backpack. So if you want to clear the anxiety, when you get it right, it's just this mental jail, this power and freedom it comes right back to you. And so you're exposed to this new level of self-expression that wasn't there. And so after that, basically, you then want to take all of the relationships that have been broken down, that you don't have workability in, and you want to restore that, because we live our life through our relationships. This is the most important part in an anxious person. The most important part of anxiety is in your life is because we live our life through our relationships. So anything broken down, any lies, any incongruencies is messing with your mindset. So that becomes the task that we help people with. Me and my team, we help people restore integrity with all of the broken down relationships, all of the stories that they've had, and heal that, and then expose you, because unconditional love and gratitude is what we use to heal anxiety. When the common, the common treatments that they have, when you're going through transition, you get anxiety, you go to a doctor, you get diagnosed, you get put on these pills, but none of those considerations are ever brought into play. And this is why what we do is completely different, and it actually works.
Yeah. So instead of treating the symptom, you're actually treating like, oh, okay, like why are you feeling this way? Right.
Yeah. What are you lying about?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you withholding? If you're going through anxiety is not a disorder. It's actually a gift. It actually shows up every single time you're being inauthentic and incongruent. And so when I learned that, it was like, wow. So living my life with integrity, cleaning up all of the lies and the incongruencies, and then you are literally free. Because if there is any room in this planet that you're afraid of walking into because you're going to run into someone, that is a blockage of your power. You've now blocked your power. And now, in order to overcome this hurdle, you have got to be the cause of its transformation. So I work with the people that are actually ready to take on their demons rather than just cover it up with the pill.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And just, looping back with that process and, with my audience that we're serving here, and, being able to see all of these things that sort of align, what you say about being part of something greater than you. I really find that it's like an inherent thing. Like no one needs to tell you, like, be part of something greater than you. It is incredible how many women I talk to that when I say, why do you want to recover? Like, why do you want to be free of this? Why now? Why is that important? And one of their hopes and dreams and something that's valuable to them is, you know what, if my recovery could inspire other women to know that they could recover as well. Like that's one of the things that commonly comes up. And I think that's so awesome to sort of be a part of something bigger, a part of a cause, a part of, a testimonial for having a better life. I think that's such a beautiful and important thing. And like you said, just clearing the resentments. I mean, with an eating disorder, again, that's something that comes up is, wow, I have spent 25 years of my life and over $100,000 in things that haven't worked to fix this. Like a lot of stuff comes up, of resentment and regret. So what would you say are just a couple of things that people can start today? Like what are just some practices, just some valuable things that, like, okay, if they want to get going down this road, what are maybe some little things they can put in today that help with getting to that journey?
Good question. First and foremost, I want to also address this concept of making your life about something greater. When you're stuck in resentment, you're so much in your head, you can't make things about others because you make everything about you. You make everything about you and what's not working. And so you're focusing on all your inadequacies. And while you're busy doing that, there's a world out there that needs the most powerful version of you. So it's so important that when we get to clearing the resentment, the way that I do it with people is first by understanding what your values are and seeing that what you hold near and dear to your life, that you hopefully have figured what that is, they only show up because of a perceived void or an emptiness or missing. So whatever you perceive to be most missing throughout your entire life is what you seek. If you perceive to be missing career and you had a question or mystery in career, then career becomes very important. If you perceive to be missing connection throughout your life, then a deep connection that you have in your life is the fruits of that void that was created. So in other words, whatever you perceive to be most missing is what you seek and hold valuable, and you become a master in. So in order to help dissolve that resentment, what I get my clients to do is we go into this process where we try to see what happened or what's in front of me, whatever I'm resenting, how was it on the way rather than in the way? So the more that I ask the right question, how did it serve me? How did it serve me? And the first answer is, it never served me. No, look again. Everything has two sides. You're focusing on how it's not serving you. What you do is you focus on, how did it serve me? How did it serve my highest values? How did it help me become more resilient? How did it help me stronger? What did it force me to do that I wasn't willing to do on my own? And these questions make you go, because how many times have you gone through something that really sucked, and that 1 year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, 20 years later, you look back on and you go, holy crap, that actually, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I am today, right? Well, why do we need 25 years to come to that conclusion? We can do it now, and that's why I created the overview method. And a big piece of that overview method, once we've uncovered what your values are, is asking, how did it serve you? How did it serve you? How did it serve you? What was it? What was the benefit of going through that? What did it force me to do? How did it make me more resilient? What would have been the drawbacks to my highest values now and my superpowers now if I didn't go through that? And what every person discovers is that they're, like in all hero movies, like Superman, Batman, whatever, their biggest challenge that they went through was actually the source of their superpower, like yourself. Your biggest challenge with your eating disorder that you've gone through is now the source of your superpower. So if you can sit here all you want and just judge yourself and go, oh, poor me, I had this big problem. But Lydia, if you can't find gratitude in your eating disorder challenges, then you haven't looked hard enough, my dear. So that's what I do with people. And so it's the biggest challenge for a human being to see how what was in the way was on the way. But when you do, by asking those questions, all of a sudden you're awoken to a greater possibility.
Yeah.
And then that fogginess of who am I? What am I here to do? Who am I here to serve lifts? And now you have a roadmap. You say, that is where I'm going to go. Happens every time. I just got an email from a client of mine who's like 2 weeks into my program. And he basically said, just going into this program has got me thinking that I really want to create some bigger purpose for myself. And I'm like, exactly. By this point, you should be starting to think that, because it wasn't possible before, because you were in such a resentment and guilt towards yourself, that we can help clear just using these very powerful tools.
Yeah, I love that. Just the power of getting things out of the way. Like, it's really amazing to me. One thing that I love about, seeing people get free, and I know that you see this all the time as well, is like, as soon as you don't have to focus on fixing yourself, as soon as you get that out of the way, it's like, I love.
Who can I help?
Exactly. I just think of it as like freeing all these powerful women into the world to do what their bigger cause is. And, they've been held back so much by this. So I love the reframing and, not only being free, but also seeing the gratitude along the way. I remember just, sort of, in my own process of, internal work, and personal development and all these things that, we do as humans to have like good lives and to be free and to be happy, is I just realized, like, wow, not only all the best things in my life, but all the best lessons that I've learned have come from the biggest challenges. Like the good, happy, everything is great times were good and happy and great. But all the good stuff came from all the hard stuff,
Yeah.
It's interesting how there's so much gold on that side of the coin,
Yeah. And it's easy to see it from hindsight, but my job is to get people there, even while they're going through it. And when you shift it while you're going through it, you awaken yourself to a power that gets you resourceful to find the solutions. And when you don't get that right, then anxiety is there as a gift to try and push you into your truth. It's not a disorder to numb. It's actually something to pay attention to actually help transform.
Yeah. That is so awesome. So, in that transition, like creating that new identity, stepping into the unknown, just like that reframing and, being able to see the gift in it. It sounds like that's a huge piece, right?
That's why I call it the overview method. The reason why I call it the overview method, that is part of the overview method. The reason why I call it that is astronauts, when they would leave the planet, would then look back down at the Earth and see the totality of it, see the big picture. And when they came back to Earth, they were never the same. They were like, they just wanted to share what they experienced and how there's no us versus them. There's just us. And they become this, these peace-loving people who are become activists for the world and everything like that. They want to make the world a better place because they saw it, right? There's a word for that. It's called the overview effect. And that's why I'm so inspired by astronauts. Chris Hadfield, who's the space station colonel, he's coming to Vancouver in a month. I got tickets. Like, I can't wait to see him because I like being around people who've had that big overview effect kind of experience. And so that's why I call it the overview method, because when you get out of your body and you look down and you question things, your assumptions and your beliefs, and see how things serve you, so you see how it wasn't in the way, it was on the way, you then aren't the same. You're never the same. You actually come, you're connected to a deeper source of power that you didn't know existed before.
Yeah, that is absolutely beautiful. And, I just think, like, what is that world where we all have that overview? What is that world where we're not so internally focused and get the things out of the way? Because, what can we do but be here for each other? You know what I mean? And if we all really were here for each other, I know I'm getting a little like frou-frou, but like, this is cool,
But it's a daily practice, Lydia. It's a daily practice. And so what I'm calling on people to do is to get that they are important enough to be putting this daily work to use in getting them into overview, to looking down at themselves, to question why you're here. What is the purpose of every action that you're taking? And when you do that, things just start to fall into place, and you can be the creator of the life of your own design rather than just a passive, reactive participant.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's basically it. It's a daily practice.
Mm-hmm. So, that daily practice and that transition to really, see the gifts in that. The other thing that I really wanted to hear your words and wisdom about is, I know that you also talk a lot about, approval. I think that it probably gets at that relationship with yourself and that approval. I know that a lot of things, there's so many messages in the world, telling people that they need to be different than they are, especially with, eating disorders as they're created. Like, okay, I literally cannot see images of real women anymore. Everything is airbrushed, and, even these impossibly genetic women, they still are airbrushed and photoshopped. It's like, we can't even see real comparisons anymore. And it really creates this feeling of like, how can I ever be good enough? The supermodel's not even good enough. She needs to be airbrushed,
Yeah.
So coming back to that sort of like, I'm not enough feeling, the approval of, oh, well, I need to manipulate myself to be like this impossible standard. So give us some wisdom about, when you're feeling that not enough feeling, how do you help people to come into a place of that self-approval and really standing in their power?
You're talking about this big piece that I have in my method called the dark passenger. It's called the dark passenger. It's this little voice in us that says, you're not enough. I'm not enough. And it's always there. And consider that each one of us, including me, including you, has that little voice that's kind of whispering, you're not enough, you're not good enough. And that's our inner critic, that little dark passenger. And the whole point is that little you're not enough actually does serve us. It serves us in a way of constantly, I go to the gym in the morning, I eat healthy, I work hard, I do my rituals, I really work towards being of service to other people, because there's that little voice that says, you're not a good person, you're not so it has its place in pushing us to better ourselves. Problems happen when we encounter events that trigger us, And that little dark passenger that's in the back seat starts to become the driver. And so it forces us to act out in all these crazy, weird behavioral patterns and addictions to try to numb ourselves from that little voice, right? And so what happens is that we then start to seek approval because we don't have it in ourselves. We start to behave in ways of, like doing things so that we get a pat on the back for other people. And so this I'm not enough is very synonymous with those feelings of rejection, with this constantly seeking approval, hiding ourselves. And there's many, many side effects and behavioral responses that happen as a result. Like you put on a mask and you pretend, because if I took my mask off and you saw the real me, you wouldn't love me because I don't love myself because I'm not enough. So it causes us to lie about who we are. It causes us to seek out things to try to sedate ourselves, booze, drugs, relationships. So it causes us to act out in these ways that just simply are not constructive when it's in the driver's seat. And the whole secret is to first and foremost, get yourself back on the horse, practice self-care, clear the resentments, and it's a call to action for you to restore integrity and to start telling the truth. Because when you start telling the truth and you get vulnerable and stating what is, you then start to become present, and you don't have one toe in the past, one toe in the future, and pissing all over the present anymore. You're actually completely congruent with where you are. And then you can then appreciate the dark passenger again, rather than being resentful of it, because it serves you. I just finished a client call with somebody who was, crying. And why is it that I've always had this feeling of I'm not enough? I said, we all have had it, a variation of it. We also have the flip side. Here's the part that helps you neutralize it. That dark passenger of I'm not enough is not only there to keep you humble and growing. It's not only there to keep you constantly striving to improve and expand. It's also there to block out your cocky and elated self that thinks that you're better than other people. Because we all have a piece of that too. We have a piece that's self-righteously thinking that we're better than others. And when we get into ego, when we take our foot off the gas and we start coasting and we just assume, hey, look at me, we got it all my crap is figured out and I got everything, all my ducks are lined up in a row, boom, the dark passenger shows up in that I'm not good enough, that the addictions or whatever, to remind us that we are not here just for this elated state of pleasure. We're here to be serving on a mission, centered, balanced, with our inadequacies balanced with our superiority where our power is. So it's a big piece. It's a huge topic. I've done workshops and talks entirely on this concept of inadequacy and dark passenger and not good enough and why it serves us. And the way that you overcome it is through love and appreciation of it. And to say, I'm grateful for it's there. If I didn't have it, I would be the cockiest person in the world. I know that for a fact. If I didn't have that little voice in my head that said, Nima, you're not enough. You're an a-hole. You're this, you're that. That sometimes is there, reminding me to stay humble, stay present, and be serving. I would be the biggest, cockiest bastard you've ever met. And so thank God that that's partially there half the time to keep me serving and to keep me relatable to my peeps.
Yeah, no, and I think that's such a beautiful principle. And, these principles of sort of, our warring, that we have the dichotomy inside, and we have so many of these, like, being in the flow of that. I talk about it like, it's the difference between standing and watching the river and like being in the river, like if you're in the river, it's just sweeping you away and it's controlling you. But if you can just look back and like see what's happening, like you said, taking that peek and realizing, oh, there's this piece and there's this piece and there's a purpose to both of them, but you're the one in charge. Like that shows up in so many places. And especially with, my audience as they're like moving through improving their, relationship with food. Like, yes, there's a piece of you that's that compulsive, what I call the chatter brain, that's reinforcing those, habits that you've had, the ones that don't serve you and the ones that do serve you. But we notice the ones that don't serve us because they're the ones that we want to get rid of.
Totally.
that piece that's talking at you, I talk about loving the chatter brain. Like, you know what? This is the same part of your brain that keeps so many other things going. And
You're talking about loving the dark passenger. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Loving the dark passenger. It's like,
the scatterbrain, I call it. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Brene Brown calls them the gremlins, and Elizabeth Gilbert calls it fear, and Julia Cameron calls it the inner critic. Like, this sort of principle of, hey, there's a voice inside you that can either run you, or you can understand it and be grateful for it, and then run your own life, right?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yes.
Fun talking to you, Lydia.
Fun talking to you too.
I just want everybody to know that you are lucky to be led by such a badass. Whoever's following you is lucky. Meeting you, I've just met somebody who's so dedicated to serving her people and getting them free from whatever is, holding them back, and having the tools to do it. Like, I'm just so impressed. And to be aligned with somebody like yourself, when you reached out to me, I was like, hell yeah.
Well, I thank you. That is very, very sweet. And I appreciate you sharing your wisdom today. And yeah, it's a beautiful journey. Like, this is life. And I'm so glad you could be another piece of that for, the people who are just looking for, hey, like, let's live a better life. And
what's next
for that?
What's next? How can I make this experience, this temporary experience on spaceship Earth, because we're in a spaceship floating through the universe, and we're all going to pass away very soon, relatively, cosmically speaking.
No one's getting out of this life.
So what's the point? How do I make this experience the most incredible of, ever? How can I step into my fear to create something incredible? And so I love teaching people how to do that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Through their fears and their transition.
For more of that, and for more of you, I'll look at the show notes below. I'm going to link to where you can find more of Dr. Nima, but tell us a little bit about what would be the next step for people if they want to dive more into this with you.
Yeah, I have a training. I have a webinar training that you can check out, and it shows basically exactly the steps, the shifts that you got to make in order to go from being stressed, depressed, and anxious to really being powerfully aligned and on purpose, knowing exactly who you are and how you serve and who you're here to serve. Like, there's a process that you need to go through, and I do a live training. I do a training on that. But if somebody really wants to, take the plunge and see, they say, I'm ready and I want to, like a roadmap, I want to, share what my story is and see if it's possible for me to clear this transitional anxiety so I can go from here to here with power and freedom and self-expression, then you can just go ahead and kind of apply, and I'll get on the phone with you, find out really what's not working so that we can create a strategy for you moving forward.
That's beautiful. So go ahead, look in the show notes for that.
And also, yeah, my Facebook group, The Art of Powerful Alignment. It's all about, because I'm a chiropractor, we talk about alignment. So it's The Art of Powerful Alignment. What do I need to do to help myself get aligned with the highest version of myself? So that's a Facebook group you can join, The Art of Powerful Alignment.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your resources and for being on today. So really just appreciate you and your time. So sort of finishing out our conversation here, like, are there any sort of like last bits where you're like, oh man, it's not complete until we say that? Or do you feel like we're complete for today?
Yeah, I just want to let you know, if anybody's ever given you a diagnosis of something, don't allow that to become your identity. If you're stuck, sick, anxious, depressed, and your body isn't working and things aren't working, just know that with the right guide, you can actually have exactly what you want. Seeking out somebody to help you get through that. Don't allow the diagnosis, don't allow the pills or whatever to define who you are, because pills don't teach skills. It's basically one of the rap songs that I wrote. I basically said, pills don't teach skills. You got to look inside if you want to find the answer to your ills. Pills don't teach skills. Covering the truth in exchange for your dollar bills. So that's really what it's about, is getting to the underlying root cause. find somebody that's going to help you get to the root cause of what's holding you back, and just go all in on yourself and invest in yourself and make yourself a priority. And when you do, you give more to the universe.
Yeah, love it. I knew that we would need to end this with a rap song. I knew it. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Nima, thank you for being on. And yeah, look in the show notes for more on that. Thank you so much for sharing of you. And hopefully this information will just be so useful to you guys in your journey.
I hope so.
Dr. Nima and Lydia, the lifestyle coach, signing off for your free ebook on how to stop binge eating and be successful at everything else. You can go to lydialifestyle.com and find more there, along with an amazing support group for wanting to change your relationship with food. We have a support group on Facebook as well. And of course, new videos every Monday here on the channel at lydiavideo.com. And so glad you guys could tune in today, take this information, have an even better life, and we will see you soon. Dr. Nima and Lydia, the lifestyle coach, signing off. Mwah. You have so many options. You can watch more videos. You can subscribe for new videos every Monday. You can even join our Facebook group with an amazing support community.